Welcome to the Find Your Feminine Fire podcast. I'm your host, renowned sex and relationship coach Amanda Testa. And if you are looking to reclaim your sexual desire, take sex from a to-do to something you look forward to, and enjoy deeply connected relationships without adding more to your already full plate, then you are in the right place. Listen in to discover how to fan the flames of your feminine fire, fall in love with your sensual self again, and experience intimacy like never before, all in a way that feels really good to your system. Make yourself comfortable and enjoy the episode. What does it mean to find your feminine fire, and why would you even want to do that? In today's episode, I'm going to dive into what that means and why it can be such a transformative thing. We are celebrating 6 years of the Find Your Feminine Fire podcast, and I am so thrilled to have you here as we relaunch the podcast. And as we do, I wanted to go back and share a little bit about the importance of this work and why finding your feminine fire, I believe, is such a key, important thing to do. Because what does that even mean, right? What does it mean to find your feminine fire? And to me, what that means is it's reconnecting to that spark inside of you, right? We all have this inner fire, this inner light within us, right? Simply by just being here, breathing, we have this. But it is so common, and I see this time and time again after a decade of working with hundreds of clients, that our lifestyle, right? This culture that we live in, that's all about like producing and working and doing and crossing everything off the to-do list. It leaves very little time for our fire to glow, right? It's so dulled by our daily activities of rushing around, of constantly having to manage so many things, not to mention the suffering of the world that we're constantly having to experience and the real challenges that we face, right? Life is challenging. It is not easy. And because of that, it can be really hard to connect to your feminine fire. One of the things as well is, right, this is available to anyone, and you can identify as anything and still connect to this part of you, right? This fire, this aliveness. And what I love about being able to find this within yourself is it's such a source of nourishment. It's such a source of pleasure and joy, right? I believe we are meant to experience a lot of pleasure and a lot of joy in our lives. And we simply have forgotten how to do that. We simply have forgotten how to do that. The other benefit of when we really own our sexuality, which is another big part of your feminine fire, is like owning that life force energy, that aliveness that we can cultivate, right? We can learn to cultivate it and make it even more magnetic and vibrant so that we can have those relationships that we want, so that we can feel like we live life as a turned on woman, right? Like we can have the relationships that we want and that deep connection with our partner, that we can like flirt and make out when we have alone time, that we can be a more present and patient parent, that we can be more fun with our friends, like actually be able to connect and be present with the people that we love. And more importantly, the more that we are connected to ourselves and our fire, the more power we have, right? The more ability we have to go out and take action on the things that we're passionate about, the more action we can take to support our collective. So this is a really big deal, right? It's a big thing to connect to. And I love watching the transformation as it happens with my clients, right? Time and time again, I see like this new version of these women coming back online, right? They're confident. They feel amazing in their body, no matter the size, the shape, anything like that. They are, have this magnetism to them. They are making decisions that serve them, right? Leaning towards what lights them up and saying no to the things that are draining them, right? They really can understand where their boundaries are and where they might be overgiving. And it's so common too in our culture that so many women are people pleasers, right? We want to please, we want to give, we want to do. And I know from my own experience as well, being a martyr was something to be proud of. And that actually depletes us, right? We can't just give from an empty cup. We have to care for ourselves as well. And not from a selfish place, but really from a self-preservation place, right? So that we have the ability to do what we're passionate about. And if you have been listening to the podcast for a while, some of the topics that we really cover in this podcast are, what it means to live life as a turned on woman, how to have epic sex, how to have great relationships, how to take care of your well-being. What are the things that as a busy woman I need to learn and know, right? Because I think that's the big thing is that we so often we're busy. We don't have the time to digest millions and millions of books and courses and learnings. And so that is the purpose of this podcast too, is just kind of distill the best of information that's out there so you can really find what you need, so that you can feel supported, so that you can learn the tools and implement in your life to see change, right? Because this podcast is a place for you. My intention behind this podcast is a place for you to come and learn, that you can be curious without shame, that you can, approach these taboo topics from a place that feels easy and doable, right? You can listen to a podcast anytime, anywhere, right? It can be a discrete thing. It can be something to do. And I know sometimes this work can feel really scary, right? It can feel scary to dip your toe into these waters. So a podcast is a pretty gentle way to step in, right? You can always pause when you need to. You can find the episode that most fits. And if you need a break, you can stop and come back to it. So this is what I love about a podcast as well. I love to talk. Okay. It's one of those things I always got in trouble for as a kid, like talking too much in class. I know my kiddo has the same traits as that, but because I feel like when I can share from the heart, I can be more authentic, right? This is a place where I can authentically share what's true, what I'm experiencing, what I've found that works, what my clients are seeing that works. And I always, one of the things I really pride myself on is staying up to date on what's the latest, most successful ways to solve problems in this realm, right? What do we need to know? And I've spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to be up to date on all the latest trainings, on all the latest things so that I can better serve you. And really, my big mission behind this podcast is to take away the shame around sexuality. When I first started this podcast, it began as just Facebook Lives. I did my Facebook group in 2016 when I started my sex coaching certification, the first one that I did with Layla Martin with the Vita coaching certification. And I was just so inspired at the change that all of us were experiencing, right? These were massive changes. And that first year, there was 150 of us in the coaching program. And so I just started talking with my peers, like, why is this work important? What has changed in your life? Because it can seem from the outside like, it is a bit of a luxury, right? To be able to explore and to make changes on ourselves. But at the same time, I find the more that I talk to women about it, talk to people about it, and how it shifted things in their lives, it's like such an important piece of the puzzle that we often don't look at. I often say it's the final frontier of personal growth and development, that if you kind of go down that road first, you'll save yourself years and years. Because I just know as soon as I started doing this, it kind of like fast tracked me past some things that had really been holding me back. And I didn't even realize it at the time. I always thought that I have an amazing husband, right? I always thought things were great. But then the more I did this work on myself, I realized that my heart was pretty closed. It was not that open. It was ready to just step out at any minute. It was still protecting itself. And, for good reason, right? Our life experiences really determine how safe we feel in opening up. And, you know, I think that's part of the reason too why I came to this work. Many of you have heard my story, but if you have not, when my daughter was around a year old, and I just remember I thought I was doing all the right things for myself, right? I was working out. I taught stroller stride, which is a workout for moms. I was a personal trainer and I was like super healthy. I ate well. I took care of myself. I was involved in my community. My husband and I had a great relationship. I was so thrilled to be a mom. At the same time, I don't think anyone had prepared me for the huge initiation that motherhood is, the huge transformation that happens when you step into that path of motherhood, right? There is an enormous shift that happens and we're not prepared for it. I don't feel like our society does a good enough job of preparing us for that. And so often many new moms, and I heard this from so many of the women that I would work out with in stroller strides, is that, there's just so much changes and you're exhausted and you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to manage so many different things and you want to like feel comfortable in your body again, but it's not even yours. And then, you always feel like someone wants a piece of you and there's always somebody that wants to touch you and you're just like, I want to be left alone. Right. And so, through that experience, I just remember one morning I was in that mood of just like, exhausted. And I went to the bathroom and I just like was kicking toys out of the way, just like, I'm the only one that ever does anything around here. And then I made my way to the bathroom mirror And I got there and I had zero recollection with the woman looking back at me. And I just, in that moment, I made it a commitment to myself that I would do whatever it took to find her again. And, I didn't know what to do. So I just was open. And I remember I was at an event. I joined this book club, and it was a great book club. It was called Real Life Book Club. And it was so great because you would read these personal growth books in community and really have that community to talk about things. And because it's so great to read a book, but how many times do you actually do the things in the book? For me, I would never do the things in the book. And so the book club actually gave some accountability to actually do the work of the book. And then I became a leader in that because I loved that so much. And through that as well, it was just like hearing these stories time and time again of women, of their struggles, of like this cultural phenomenon that we're in where, so many women struggle with self-doubt, not being able to trust themselves, not feeling good enough. And this is a cultural issue, right? Because it is across the board. I see it. And, that was one of the things I did. And just like all the learnings that I did were little doorways. Through that event, I met a coach and I hired my first coach. And I remember at that time, I was like, what am I doing? This feels like a crazy thing to spend money on. I mean, I don't even know. There's like, what is the tangible outcome? I had zero clue, but I was trusting what I was being called to do. And through that, I met one of my dearest and closest friends now. And that really helped me to like get clear on what I even wanted. I also hear this from many of my clients is that they're so overwhelmed. It's like, if I gave you a day and $1 million, what would you do? And so many times it's like, I don't even know. Sit in a room and sleep. So it's like really remembering what are the things that you desire? What lights you up? That is such a key part of the process. And so after that, I just kept following the breadcrumbs. And then I found this thing online about working with sexuality. And I was like, well, anyone with a new baby knows things in the bedroom can use some help. And so I was like, well, this can't hurt. And I was blown away by what I learned because this was through one of my teachers, Layla Martin. And this was like in 2014. And so it was all around like understanding your own sexual energy, understanding the power of what that is, how to nourish it and use it to support yourself, to use it to support your body. And of course, like having amazing sex is a side effect of connecting to yourself and what your sexuality is to you, knowing it's for you, right? This is for you. And you get to choose how you want to use it. You get to choose how you turn it up or turn it down, right? And I just was blown away after that program. I started my coaching business in 2015 after doing stroller strides, just wanting to support women in community. And so we would do these cool outings and we would do these Find Your Feminine Fire 6-week courses. And really, I was just putting together all the things that I've learned, the hundreds of books that I read. And I was looking at that time for a coaching certification. And there wasn't anything out there that was quite right. And then Layla launched the Vita Coaching Certification, which is a 650-hour sex and relationship coaching certification. This is really rooted in these tantric principles and learning so many amazing things around what it really takes to heal, what it really takes to embrace all of you, to appreciate every single aspect as sacred, and including your sexuality and all that goes with that. And it was like heaven. And so since then, of course, this has been my passion and my dream. And I love supporting people on this path. I love helping women awaken their sexuality. I really do see it as this incredible power source. And when women can connect to this, their creativity just explodes and their relationships deepen. And when I work with couples, really seeing how they transform from not being able to talk about sex or from feeling like they can connect in every area, but not this area, or, feeling like there's shame or residual, things that are held in the system that keep them from enjoying sex, that keep them from enjoying deep intimacy with their partner. Hey, it's Amanda. If you are enjoying the show and felt a connection to what we've discussed, and you're ready to take the next step in reigniting your passion and enhancing your relationships, I have something special for you. Visit www.amandatesta.com/thegoods, where you can subscribe to my email. And if you want, you can sign up for a free personalized sensuality discovery session with me. In this one-on-one heart-to-heart session, we'll explore your unique desires, uncover any challenges, and set a path for you to experience the vibrant, fulfilling love life you deserve. Don't let another day pass feeling unfulfilled or disconnection. Take action now, and let's start this beautiful journey together to fire up your feminine fire. Join me at amandatesta.com/thegoods. I'm excited to stay connected. Now back to the show. And so the direct benefit that I see with clients, with podcast listeners, the feedback that I get is that this is transformational. When you can view your sexuality as sacred, as this spiritual gift, as something that can be fun, it doesn't have to be something you check off your list. You can feel good in your body no matter what. You can find different sources of energy. You can learn what it is that you really want and desire, right? And learn how to feel safe in those things. You can learn how to find and connect, create the boundaries that support you, right? Learn what are the things that I'm really saying yes to and what I'm saying no to, and honor that. Because again, we have been so taught to override that stuff. It's not our fault. Since kindergarten, when we can't go to the bathroom when we want, we've been taught to override these things. Um, also that you can learn how to trust yourself more, be able to express who you truly are more, be able to use all your skills to support our collective more, and use your aliveness to fuel the things that you're most passionate about. Right. And I just love time and time again when I hear things like this from clients, it's like, oh, my relationship has done a complete 180. I used to have pain during sex or couldn't speak up for my needs. And now we've been able to implement new techniques and I'm having the best sex of my life. And I tell you what, if I wish I need to take more before and after pictures of people when they start this work, because it's like they're a whole new glowing, vibrant version of themselves. And it's easy, it's doable, right? Everybody can do it. It's not like it's rocket science. It's just simple tools and things that you can do to shift. And the other thing that I really see is doing this work enables people to show up differently in their communities, right? It enables them to be more patient with the people they love. It enables them to have more patience with their kids, right? Maybe if there's someone who's very reactive, which is part of my journey, is that they can learn to use the skills to be more responsive versus react. And the crazy sneaky thing about this work, because a lot of the work that I do is somatic experiencing, that is, if you're familiar with Peter Levine's work, he's created this body of work called somatic experiencing, which is another thing that I'm certified in, is really working with the nervous system. And it's sneaky powerful, right? Because after doing this work for a time, you are a different person. Your nervous system is different. You show up differently, right? The things that used to trigger you don't trigger you as much. The things that used to like make you close down, you have more capacity, right? You're really building your capacity to show up in the ways that you want. And this is so connected to our sexuality. This is so connected to our aliveness. I see it again, just in people being able to really find what their heart is wanting and saying yes to that, saying yes to what their heart is truly craving versus maybe something that they've been forcing themselves to do that they aren't really 100% behind, right? And so often too with couples, it's like there's that little teeny bit out the doorness, right? Maybe they've been in a long-term relationship, or maybe they are in a transition and they're like, well, things could be better. I mean, they're pretty good, but they could be better. So there's that part of them that's not 100% full in. And so it's learning like to be fully committed to the things that you're committed to, like being fully all in. And how, when you do that, things shift. When you show up in a new way, your relationship shifts. Because that's another thing people always ask, like, well, what if my partner doesn't want to do this with me? Well, then do it on yourself first, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to come along. And if you don't, then that you can cross that bridge when you come to it. But so often our brain wants to go like 10 million steps down the line, right? We're like, oh, we had a fight last night. So now we're going to be divorced and I'm going to be homeless on the street, or whatever the thoughts we think. We have to slow that down and realize, no, we can get through things one step at a time. And the other thing about this work is that it helps give you that resilience that, like, no matter what, I'm going to figure it out. I'm smart enough and I'm going to figure it out. And I really think on a bigger scale, this mission is really about creating a lot of power. And I do work with a lot of women, and I feel like our sexuality is our power, right? When we can really use our sexuality to empower ourselves, we can transform self-doubt. We enhance our relationships. We're able to speak out more around the things that we see in society that we don't like. We can embrace our true selves and really use that for positive change. I think that is such a key thing about this, when we can view this not as a taboo, but as something to celebrate, our whole world can shift, right? You see this in the politics, right? You see this in the way the world is. There's so much fear around women's sexuality and women's power that they're trying to, they're shutting it down, right? Not being able to have choice, not being able to choose how we want to be in our bodies, not being able to have choice around sexuality. And that's why there's so much taboo and fear around it. And so really my goal is to eliminate this fear, right? Eliminate this shame, eliminate the taboo, and let this become just a part of our overall vitality and wellness, right? Like everyone brushes their teeth, they do their daily sensuality practice, right? Like everybody washes their face, they give themselves like a sensual, loving breast massage. Like everybody, goes out to dinner, they really value that time and connection, but in a deeper, more conscious way, right? It's such a powerful thing when we can connect to this part of us. It is life-changing. And I can just see how when we always joke in our gang of sex coaches and my colleagues, oftentimes we call ourselves like the coven of sex witches because we are like using our power for good. But I see that time and time again, the more empowered we are, the more we can stand up, the more we have capacity, right? To support the things we love, the people we love, to stand up for things like, one of my clients, she was really intimidated to speak up in their PTA group and or to talk to her kids' teachers about things. And then after working together, she became so much more like she reclaimed her voice, right? Reclaiming our voice is a big part of our sexuality. And so she was able to actually speak to one of the teachers about something that had been really challenging her and her kid. And they made some shifts, but she had been too intimidated to speak up before, right? And I see this all the time too with corporate women who are extremely successful. But yes, we live in a society where even the top-notch people can still have to deal with sexual harassment and all kinds of BS. And so being able to really stand in your power is important to show up in the world, to be able to speak your mind and to share your thoughts in an office meeting, right? In the boardroom and in the bedroom. It's all so connected. It's all so connected. And so listening to this podcast, even just listening and taking in this information, you are changing, right? You're shifting your perspectives. You're learning to be more loving and compassionate to yourself. You're learning the tricks and tools that you need to have better sex, to embrace your sexuality as a vital and important part of your life, and to eliminate the shame around it, right? To be able to enjoy more pleasure in everything you do, right? In everything you do, finding the pleasure in it, because that is the key. And it's not to it's not to bypass all the hard things, but it's to have better tools to combat them. And most importantly, be compassionate and loving to yourself, right? And by finding your feminine fire, all this becomes even more possible. And so you are such a huge, vital part of this podcast. And I can't thank you enough for being here and for being a part of it. And I've got some really fun guests coming up. I've got some great topics we're going to be diving into. And as always, if you have feedback from me, if you have things you want to hear, if you have guests you want me to talk to, please reach out to me. You can send any email to info@amandatesta.com. And we always carefully review all the feedback and really take it to heart. So thank you again for being a part of this podcast. Thank you for celebrating 6 years with me and relaunching this podcast. And again, I'm sending you so much love. We'll see you next week. Sending you so much love. We will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Find Your Feminine Fire podcast. If you loved this episode, please go ahead and forward it right now to someone you know would love it. And if you've not had a chance yet to leave us a rave review on Apple Podcasts, please make sure to rate and review if you enjoyed it, as well as make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you want to stay connected, make sure to go to amandatesta.com/thegoods to download your free sensuality activation and stay connected. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.